Some of the smartest money in the world, Microsoft, a Gulf sovereign wealth fund, the private investment arm of the World Bank, together poured more than $450 million into a single piece of artificial intelligence. One app with one promise. Describe the software you want, and its AI will build it for you. As easily, the pitch went as ordering a pizza. At its peak, the company was worth $1.5 billion. There was just one detail all that smart money appears to have missed. The artificial intelligence was about 700 people. Quick, honest note before we go, because this is a story about who did what. A lot of what you're going to hear was uncovered by reporters and later laid out in insolvency filings, and some of it is still contested. The founder has denied wrongdoing. So I'll tell you plainly what's confirmed, what's reported, and what's alleged. And I'm not here to put one person in the stock. I'm here because of the machine underneath. The reason the sharpest investors on earth can hand over $500 million and never check the one thing that mattered. Because this isn't really a story about a scam. It's a story about a magic word. A word so powerful that, for a few years, saying it seemed to switch off everyone's ability to ask the obvious question. Let me show you how the trick worked, how long it lasted, and the single sentence that could have ended it at any time. The company was founded in 2016, and its whole world revolved around a friendly assistant with the name Natasha. You tell Natasha what app you wanted, and Natasha, the story went, would assemble it for you from pre-built blocks, no coding required. Human-assisted, sure, the way a calculator is human-assisted. But the intelligence, the thing doing the building, was supposed to be the software. Here's what reporters found behind the curtain. The heavy lifting was reportedly done by human engineers, around 700 of them, based mostly in India, taking your request and writing the app the old-fashioned way. In this account, the AI was mostly a routing layer. It took your order and handed it to a person, occasionally leaning on a language model to generate some boilerplate. The Wall Street Journal reported this reliance on human engineers back in 2019, 6 years before the collapse. There's a name for this now, and it's the mechanism of the whole episode, AI washing. It's dressing up ordinary human work or ordinary software in the language of artificial intelligence because that language changes the price. The exact same company, described as an outsourced app shop with a nice interface, raises a normal amount of money. Described as an AI that builds apps, it becomes a unicorn. Same people, same output, one magic word. And to be fair, it's because fairness is the point. A business that pairs a slick interface with skilled engineers is a perfectly real business. Nothing illegal about humans in the loop. The problem was never that people did the work. The problem was the gap between what was sold and what was running. The buyers thought they were paying for a machine that scales for free. They were paying for a payroll of 700. A curtain can hold for a long time, as long as the numbers behind it keep climbing. So follow the numbers, because this is where a marketing story quietly becomes a financial one. The company told the world it was booking around $220 million in sales for 2024. When a new team reportedly went through the books, the real figure looked closer to 55 million. That's not a rounding error. That's revenue reported at roughly 4 times what it turned out to be. The kind of gap that once you see it, you can't unsee because every valuation, every funding round, every headline was priced off the bigger number. By October of 2024, the forecasts were being cut, reportedly by about a quarter, and the debt had climbed past $100 million. Now sit with the strangeness of that. This was a company backed by Microsoft, by a sovereign wealth fund, by the World Bank's own investment arm, some of the most sophisticated due diligence on the planet. And the thing they didn't pin down wasn't buried in a footnote. It was the product. Does the AI actually build the app on its own? Yes or no? That question has a name too, and it's the quiet twin of AI washing, the fear of missing out. When a category is exploding and everyone's racing to own a piece of it, the incentive flip. The boring deal-killing test, show me it runs without the humans, becomes the question nobody wants to be the one to ask, because asking it might mean losing the deal to someone who didn't. So the curtain stayed shut until the money ran out. When it went fast, the way these things always do, because a story that depends on confidence has no brakes once confidence goes. In February of 2025, the founder stepped out of the chief executive seat and a new CEO stepped in. An emergency funding round, around $75 million meant to keep the lights on, fell through. In March, roughly 270 people lost their jobs. The company that had promised to replace engineers was now, quietly, letting its engineers go. Then came the last day. On the 20th of May, 2025, a lender called Viola Credit did something creditors do when they smell the end. It swept the accounts, pulled roughly $37 million out, and left the company with about $5 million in cash. $5 million against debts that reportedly included $85 million owed to Amazon and $30 million to Microsoft. A $1.5 billion unicorn, and there wasn't enough left to make payroll. It filed for insolvency. And here's the part that turns a business story into a human one. The customers, real businesses that had built their real apps on this platform, watched those apps start to go dark. Because when the company that runs the machine disappears with it. Everything they'd built on top of the magic word was sitting on someone else's servers, and the someone else was gone. So that's the fall, but a collapse is just an event. What makes it worth 11 minutes of your life is the pattern underneath, the one that's already forming around the next company and the one after that. By now you know its name, Builder.ai. But the name isn't the lesson. The lesson is that this was never really about one company or one founder. It's about a blind spot the whole market shares, and will share again because the magic words still work. Here's the mechanism in one line, the thing to carry out of here. Every AI product is a claim about an invisible system. When someone says our AI does this, they're asking you to trust a machine you can't see, and underneath it, to trust that somebody already checked, that the sophisticated money in the room did the boring test. Builder.ai is the proof that sometimes nobody did. The verification everyone assumed had happened, hadn't. So here's the one question. Free, portable, works on any product with AI in the pitch. It's the sentence that could have ended this story at any point in 6 years, if a single person with a checkbook had insisted on the answer. What happens when you unplug the humans? If the thing still runs, you've got a machine. If it quietly stops, if the demo needs a person you were told wasn't there, then you're not buying intelligence. You're buying a curtain and paying unicorn prices for it. That's Edge Dive. The invisible systems running the world and the plain questions that switch the lights. Quick disclaimer, this is educational commentary on technology and markets. Reported and alleged details are attributed. It's not financial, investment, or legal advice. If what happens when you unplug the humans changed how you'll look at the next AI headline, subscribe. The next system we take apart is already loading.